The following is a review for critical, analytical, and educational purposes only, and is protected under Article 17 and 107 in the United States Fair Use Code. This video is not an infringement on copyright. Please enjoy the video.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Trilbee, and welcome to my review of The Smurfs. Okay, now I know what you're all expecting. You've come here thinking that I'm going to completely bash this movie, creatively insult it, and give it a thrashing that a obvious blatant cash grab deserves. And for all intents and purposes, yes, this is obviously a blatant cash grab. This movie seems set up to fail just because of the quote-unquote talent on board. One of the production companies behind The Smurfs is Kerner Entertainment. And of course, they're renowned for cinematic classics. And not to mention, the director of this movie, Raja Gosnell, has directed masterpieces like Home Alone 3, Big Mama's House, Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo 2, Beverly Hills Chihuahua. So this movie is pretty much set up to fail, right? So, is it an abomination? No. Now don't get me wrong, it is a pretty bad movie, but it's not this horrible, putrid thing that many people seem to say it is. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, let's talk about the movie. The Smurfs was released in the US on July 29th, 2011, and in the UK on August 10th. It was distributed by Columbia Pictures and created by Sony Pictures Animation and Kerner Entertainment Company. It was directed by Raja Gosnell, produced by Jordan Kerner, and written by J. David Stern, David N. Weiss, Jay Shrerick, and David Ron, based off the popular Smurfs franchise created by Peyo. The movie stars Hank Azaria, Neil Patrick Harris, and Jayma Mays, with voice work by Jonathan Winters, Katy Perry, Fred Armisen, Alan Cumming, Anton Yelchin, George Lopez, and Frank Welker, with music by Hieta Piera, cinematography by Phil Mayhew, and editing by Sabrina Plisco. It has a running time of 103 minutes, is rated PG, and was produced on a budget of $110 million, and it was a massive success, earning over 5 times its budget at the box office worldwide. Okay, so enough of the credits and the numbers. What is this movie about? Okay, so the basic plot of The Smurfs is that the Smurfs, during a routine day, are chased out of their village by the evil Gargamel, played by Hank Azaria. While escaping, a group of Smurfs encounter a portal which transports them to 2011 New York City, and Gargamel follows them. The Smurfs, consisting of Papa Smurf, Smurfette, Brainy Smurf, Gutsy Smurf, Clumsy Smurf, and Grouchy Smurf, must try and find their way home with the help of Neil Patrick Harris and Jayma Mays. And yes, I know that their characters have names, but you don't care. Neil and Jayma are pretty much just playing themselves. Okay, so the movie opens in the Smurfs village, and this sequence actually isn't too bad. Yes, the extended camera shots and the chase scenes are obviously only there to cater to the 3D gimmick that was all the rage in 2011. See kids, even Papa Smurf is wearing 3D glasses. And yes, while it's obviously CG, it's the cross between realistic looking environments and the cartoony looking Smurfs that is actually the best thing about the movie. Say what you will about the writing, the story, the acting, whatever about this movie, but when you get down to brass tacks, the Smurfs themselves and their village in this opening does look pretty good. Sure, the gags themselves aren't very funny in this opening, but it's harmless, it's watchable, and it's full of bright, shiny colours so the kids will be entertained. It's also in this opening sequence where we first see Gargamel, played by Hank Azaria, and he's surprisingly good. Now don't get me wrong, he's hardly going to win an Oscar or anything, but when you compare Hank Azaria's performance to the original cartoon series Gargamel, it's a pretty accurate interpretation. In fact, it looks like there are quite a few moments that seem to have been ad-libbed by Hank, and there are quite a few chuckles to be had.
And everything is just sunshine and rainbows.
But all of that is about to change. I said all of that is about to change. Aziel, that's your cue. That's your cue to pounce on the miserable beastman. Some kind of a rage-induced feline frenzy. Good, get more rage. Hey, but don't go crazy. These are the only puppets I have.
But there are some heavily scripted moments, and, well, just watch.
Oh, Thank the gods, a chamber pot. The swill that you call Dom Perignon has gone straight to my nether regions.
Okay. I want to know how we got from this to this. You know, for kids. Okay, but let's talk about the premise of the movie. So the Smurfs have been sent to New York City, and that's a bit strange. The Smurfs aren't even an American creation, they're Belgium, so why aren't they in Brussels or somewhere else in Europe? In fact, the Smurfs actually encounter a book of their comic strip adventures. So what are the implications? Does their TV show exist? If the Smurfs do exist in this world as a pop culture icon, then why don't the main characters know anything about them from their fictional escapades? But getting back on point, why are they in New York? Well, because in New York they can get loads of product placement in, and I'm serious when I say I do not think I've ever seen so much shameless product placement in a movie before. Because this is a Sony movie, they advertise Blu-ray, the PS3. I'm surprised they didn't try to advertise Bing. Instead, they use Google. There's a shot where the Smurfs first enter Times Square, and if you've ever been there, then you know that there are so many adverts in that place, and this movie makes sure that you see every single one of them. There's even a scene where the Smurfs go into a toy shop, just so that they can show off a load of toys, so the kids watching this movie will want to buy them. It brings the plot to an absolute halt. Yes, product placement does have its place in certain movies, but when the movie actually stops in its tracks, then we have a problem here. But let's start talking about the characters. There's not much to be said about the Smurfs themselves because they're one-dimensional by their very nature, so let's focus on the human characters. Neil Patrick Harris is surprisingly good here considering the material. This is not a phoned-in performance, and while the material isn't great, Harris imbues real heart into his character. You see, he and his wife Jaima are expecting a child, and Neil is understandably nervous, but he's not a bad person. He's not going to run away from responsibility or try and push Jaima down the stairs. He just wants to be a good dad, but he doesn't know if he can be. He feels like a real person, and so does Jaima. Jaima is a very underrated actor, and she does a good job here as well. What's most impressive about Neil and Jaima's performances is the way they interact with the CGI Smurfs. Like I said earlier, they don't exactly look real, you can tell that they're CG creations, but the way the actors interact with them, it seems like they're talking and having conversations with real-life creatures. Whether you like director Raja Gosnell's work or not, he's clearly experienced in having human beings interact with CG characters for extended periods of time, and that experience does show. But really, this is just damning the movie with faint praise, as the interactions themselves aren't very good, they just look and feel right. But there is one conversation sequence in this movie that is genuinely good. There's a scene over halfway through the film where Neil and Papa Smurf have a conversation on the roof of their apartment complex, and it's actually really well written and really well performed by both Neil Patrick Harris and Jonathan Winters, who plays Papa Smurf, and they both give great performances in this scene. Oh, and for the record, Jonathan Winters is a fantastic Papa Smurf. There's such a warmness to his performance, and he's so natural in the role, and he has a great voice for it. It also helps that despite what the posters would have you believe, Papa Smurf is in character throughout the movie. He doesn't do anything hip and modern. He is unquestionably Papa Smurf. But anyway, this scene, Papa Smurf is a father to 99 sons and 1 daughter, so he's very well experienced in looking after people and being responsible, whereas Neil is about to become a father, and he has never had to deal with responsibility on this level. Don't get me wrong, this is hardly Oscar-winning stuff, but it does show that the writers at least put some thought into the character dynamics.
So tell me, that weird guy in the ratty bathrobe at the toy store?
Gargamel?
He's not really a wizard, is he?
Not the smartest of sorcerers, but dangerous just the same. Thank you. Back home, I could hold him at bay with a spell or two, but here, without my books and potions, well, today we got lucky. But next time, who knows?
Well, what are you gonna do?
I'll do anything and everything I can do to get my Smurfs home. I won't ever give up. They're my family. And you never give up on family.
But it's hard to admire a movie with a scene like that when this is what happened in the scene before.
Oh, just match the colors with the buttons. You try. Hey, go, Crunchy! You're good. Thanks, Ron.
Hey, look at me, guys. I'm ready.
Walk this way!
You sing.
Talk this way. Just give me a chance.
Rockface. Gene Simmons. Never mind.
Okay, to understand why this scene is so incredibly stupid, it's going to require a bit of an explanation. Okay, in 2005 Guitar Hero was released, and it was a massive success. Over the next few years, Activision would seek to ruin this franchise by giving it sequel after sequel after sequel. The series reached critical mass in 2009 when Guitar Hero Van Halen, Band Hero, Guitar Hero 5, On Tour, and Metallica were released. Yeah, all of that was released in 1 year, and sales plummeted as a result. Oversaturation destroyed the music simulation market, including all of its contemporaries. The series died a slow death in 2010 with Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, and now here's the Smurfs released in 2011 trying to capitalise on the Guitar Hero craze a year after it had already died. This movie was actually dated the year before it came out. Now that is just pathetic. And ultimately that's the biggest problem with the Smurfs movie. It's trying to jump on bandwagons that have already been and gone, and trying to make the Smurfs appeal to hip and cool kids in order to try and stay current and modern goes against the timeless storytelling that the Smurfs built their entire brand on. The Smurfs created by Peyo was hardly a masterpiece, but it was humble, it had a charm to it. This, for the most part, is just a soulless cash-in. Even some plot points don't make any sort of sense. The opening scene has Papa Smurf have a vision showing that something bad is going to happen. Clumsy is going to screw up and they're going to be locked away. In the end, it turns out that this is not what was going to happen, and the movie makes a big deal about how Papa Smurf's visions have never been wrong. So what was the point of the vision? It's only there to artificially induce tension into the movie. It's so shoehorned in that it's almost pathetic. Also, there's the subplot about Neil having to create an advertising campaign for a fashion company he works with, but through a mishap, Clumsy accidentally sends Neil's boss the wrong marketing material, so the next day the wrong material is plastered all over New York City, and his boss calls him telling him to fix it. Why does Neil have to fix a marketing campaign that you had to have approved? He sent the email to you. Why don't you fix it because you approved it? Even the Smurfs mythology isn't very well defined for a new audience unfamiliar with the source material. The Smurfs make a big deal on how they need Smurf berries, but what are Smurf berries? If they're a source of food, why can't the Smurfs eat anything else? Why is Smurfette the only girl? The movie says that it has something to do with Gargamel, but it's really glossed over. And before you go into the comment section explaining the deep mythology of the Smurfs and why Smurfette is the only girl, the movie should have explained it. If you have to explain it in order for the kids to understand it, the movie has missed the entire point. Also, while it was a good idea to only have a handful of Smurfs being the focal point of the movie, it could have been handled better. All of the main Smurfs have some sort of a visual motif in order to easily distinguish them. Except for Clumsy and Grouchy, who look identical, but the Smurfs themselves are tolerable for the most part. Sure, the material isn't really good, but they're voiced pretty well. Even Katy Perry does a decent job voicing Smurfette. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the only compliment that Katy Perry will ever have towards her voice.
We used to be just like twins, so in sync, the same energy.
Also, the plot is quite slow and rather dull, unless the Smurfs are experiencing New York in a way that doesn't benefit the actual plot, like riding on the subway, going to a toy store, whatever. They're just sitting around and waiting for Papa Smurf to figure out how they can get home. They're not very proactive until the end, meaning that this plot has very little forward momentum. I apologise for the fact that this review has sort of been all over the place, but there isn't a singular thing to hone in on when criticising or even complimenting this movie, as it really is just a hodgepodge of things thrown at the screen with the Smurfs' names plastered all over it, and in that respect the Smurfs is ultimately harmless. It's not a good movie, not even close, and as far as children's entertainment goes, you can do so much better. Just look at the stuff Disney, Pixar and DreamWorks have been producing recently. To release something as lifeless as the Smurfs into such a crowded marketplace just reeks of laziness, but with the exception of one or two moments, there's nothing here that I'd try and stop children from actively seeing. But with its outdated sensibilities and just a lack of anything truly compelling here, it won't appeal to anyone above the age of, let's say, 6 or 7. Sure, it's meant to be for kids, but when you release a kids' film in theatres, it's the adults who have to pay, take them, and sit through the movie with the kids. And I firmly believe that there's only so much an adult will be willing to stomach until they decide to stop taking their kids to see lackluster or crappy movies, no matter how much a kid whines or begs. Despite some decent performances and decent production values, the Smurfs is ultimately bogged down with a lack of effort, soul, and just a corporate focus group approach of what was popular in 2010 and 2011. I give it 2 stars out of 5. Now, I'd just like to stress that just because I gave the Smurfs 2 stars and not a lower score is not some kind of an endorsement, far from it. Just because a movie doesn't make me want to repeatedly stab my Smurfing eyeballs out doesn't mean that it's automatically good enough. And it may be a kids' movie, but that doesn't excuse the fact that with so much competition out there in the same marketplace, then the Smurfs really isn't worth the time or the money to see. Now let's find out what you guys and girls had to say about the Smurfs. So it's pretty much unanimous. This movie, absolutely Smurfs. Now that's all from me. If you'd like to contribute towards the next review, then be sure to like my Trilbee Reviews Facebook page and comment on the latest picture, which will be Kick-Ass. So you can, if you have any thoughts on Kick-Ass, whether you liked it or you loved it, then be sure to go on the Facebook page and voice your opinion and have it possibly get featured in the next review. And speaking of reviews, I have got a new book out at The Movies with Trilbee, A Year in Film, which you can buy now for £10 or your regional equivalent. And you can order that in the description below in lulu.com, and if you order one of those, then you are going towards supporting my channels in order to get better sound or film equipment and just really help me out. And you're getting a very good book. At least I get lots of messages from people telling me that they're really enjoying the book, so that means an awful lot to me, so thank you very much. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Trilbee Reviews. My name is Trilbee, and I believe that's everything, so thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys next time.